Hello and welcome. What we're going to talk about in this screencast will be the Monroe's motivated sequence format for writing a persuasive presentation. It will only focus on that. So if you are searching for a video that will discuss other forms of persuasion, I recommend you check out my other screencasts on that topic. However, if you are one of my students, you are required to watch this because I'm going to go over the speech format you will use for your persuasive presentation in my class. So, the Monroe's motivated sequence is essentially the most successful format of persuasive presenting. If you want to have a successful presentation where you influence your audience and motivate them to take action for or against something, you want to use the motivated sequence. It is historically bound, research based, and proven effective throughout the eons of time. If you learn this sequence effectively, you will be able to identify it in everything from commercials to basic, easy, normal, what we talk about type of conversations, but you will figure out what you need to when you need to. So, we're going to start off here with what the basics of the sequence are. If you are not taking notes, I would recommend that you do because I'm actually going to outline your presentation for you with this example, and I will be expecting you to utilize these steps effectively. So, if need be, pause me and get to it. The first step of Monroe's motivated sequence is to grab our attention. If you are in one of my classes, you know by now that that's exactly what you're supposed to do at the beginning of any presentation, whether it is informative, descriptive, introductory, or group, you have to get our attention first. Your audience is busy. If it's a virtual audience, we're busy and distracted. So you have to get our attention first. What I want to emphasize here is that this first step is part of a full introduction. You still have to have a thesis and a preview and a relevance claim and explain why you're credible for the topic, but the emphasis of that introduction is fully and completely getting your audience on board with what you want to talk about. You are grabbing our attention and making us feel the importance of this topic. So you might end up having to expand on the grabbing attention tactics that you've used in the past. You might need to ask a series of questions instead of just one question. If you want to tell a story, instead of just having a little bit of a story at the beginning, it might be a story that you weave through your entire presentation, like a narrative paradigm. You might have to show a video clip or sound. You will have to use descriptive, vivid language. Maybe you use a startling statistic. If so, cite it. But you're going to have to oomph up that particular part of your introduction because in order for us to be persuaded, we have to be paying attention. So, with the attention grabber, please remember that it is part of a full introduction, but it should also not take forever. You still have time limits that you have to hold on to for this presentation. So, don't have a 5 minute attention grabber. Yeah, you might have our attention, but you won't get anything else done. So, make sure that your attention grabber, whatever it is well practiced and efficient. Getting into the body of your presentation, the very first main point you're going to have after your introduction would be the establishing need step. What you do in this step is you explain to us what is the problem or the issue that we're going to be resolving today. So, what is going on? What is the problem? And you secondly need to explain and prove that it's actually a problem. Because consider the diversity in your audience. There will be members in your audience that this topic may not obviously apply to. Therefore, you are going to have to work harder to make sure all of us understand why it is important. For example, I had students at a previous university that I worked for who wanted to develop a persuasive presentation about resolving the parking conflicts that we had. Well, as a faculty member, I get priority parking. I still sometimes have to walk half a mile to my classrooms, but as far as where I park, it typically is closer to a building than students park. So for me, that student would have to explain why it's an issue for me too, instead of just the other audience members, which were primarily students. So explain clearly what the problem is in your subpoint A, and then in your subpoint B, explain why this is an actual issue that is relevant to everyone in your audience viewing area. So after you have explained the problem and explained why it's a problem, you then end up providing satisfaction or solution to the problem. So the second main point, but third step of the Monroe's motivated sequence is that you give me a solution to the problem. So what you do here is you identify solutions. You might have more than one. You might just have one. You might be able to give me one great way to resolve the disparities in parking. But then you have to explain and prove that the solution actually solves the issue. Just like before, where you have to explain that it is a problem for everybody, here you have to prove that your solution actually covers it. Most of us have probably had the personal experience in the past where someone had a solution, but it didn't actually address the problem, so it was a waste of time and money. It's kind of like handing somebody a tissue whenever they have a cut foot, like, thank you, but that didn't really do much for me. So, as you identify solutions, part of your job as a persuasive presenter is to be exceptionally clear about how that solution is truly effective and resolves the problem. After you've done that, you have the visualization step. And the visualization step is where this takes it a little bit further from the other persuasive strategies that I referred to in my other screencast, because this step explains how things will or will not be once we adopt your solution. So, visualization, look at the root word, visualize, is where you help your audience see what the world is going to be like once that problem is resolved. Okay, so third main point, body of your speech, but fourth step of the Monroe's motivated sequence, you are explaining clearly to your audience how the world is going to be once that issue is resolved. Is it students getting to class on time because they weren't circling hunting for parking? Is it an equal access to parking so that everybody's on a level playing field and, can choose what they want to do? Did you provide carpool options to get more people closer to the buildings? I don't know. So visualize, explain to your audience how things will look once that problem is resolved. Lastly, you have a call to action. In my other screencast, I talked about actuating speeches and how actuating speeches are there to motivate your audience to take action. That's what this step of the motivated sequence is here to do. The call to action is where you appeal to your audience as part of a complete conclusion. I feel just like I'm saying part of your complete breakfast, but as part of a full conclusion. So you still signal, you still review your thesis, you still go over your main points. But what you're doing here to wrap up your presentation is to give your audience something that they can do in order to help bring us closer to your solution. So, give your audience something small and specific that we can actually go out and accomplish in order to help you get closer to your goals. For example, if we were trying to resolve the parking issue on campus, then perhaps you could give us the website of a place where we could sign a petition, or maybe you could have us call someone in administration and make a polite request. But give us something small and specific. Do not ever include in your presentation, let's go out there and make the world a better place, because that's so broad. We're not going to do it. Like, what does that even mean? You tell me to go out there and make the world a better place. What am I doing? Am I like adopting another cat or, mowing my lawn less? Like, I don't know what that means. So it has to be small because we're too busy to do anything big. And it has to be specific so that we know what we can do. And it has to be attainable, which means it's something we can actually realistically accomplish. So that could be something, let's say that you're giving me a persuasive presentation on the importance of voting. If I do that, then my small attainable task could be to go vote early. And you could tell us where to look up our voting location information. You could tell us how to utilize those little voting task screens, whatever it is the machines they use, or how to request a mail-in ballot, whatever it might be. You could give us something small and specific that we could actually do. So to go through this whole sequence again, you are getting my attention. It's part of a complete introduction, so you'll still have your thesis preview and etc. You are then going to, first main point of your speech, explain the issue, prove that it's an issue. Second main point, explain solutions, prove the solutions are useful and actually do what they promise. Third main point, visualize, help your audience see what the world is going to be like once that problem is resolved. And then lastly, as part of a complete conclusion where you review and go through your thesis again, you assign us a small, doable task that we can accomplish in order to improve the world. So, that in a nutshell is the Monroe's motivated sequence that if you are in one of my classes, you're going to have to use. So, as always, reach out, let me know if you need help. But if you're in one of my classes, congratulations, you're done.